all, welcome to the channel DEVOPS-TECHSTACK. I hope you all are doing safe and sound. So today we are going to learn all about the GitHub Actions. So without any further delay, let's first discuss what are the agenda for which we are going to discuss in the GitHub Actions video. The very first thing is, what is GitHub Actions? What are the use cases of using GitHub Actions? What are the components of GitHub Actions? And at last, a real-time project based on GitHub Actions where we will provision EC2 instance using the Terraform via the GitHub Actions. So the very first thing is, what is GitHub Actions basically? Now, it is just like Jenkins, a CI/CD platform. So you must be aware in DevOps we are using much frequently Jenkins to use as a pipeline tool. But now GitHub Actions is also popular and it is also a CI/CD, that is continuous integration and delivery platform that let you allow automate your pipeline task. So at last, with the help of GitHub Actions, you are ready to automate your build, test and deployment pipeline. All those things you can create, which we are going to quickly let's look at that part also. Now, what are the GitHub Actions use case? Why people are using basically GitHub Actions, where you can use it? So the very first thing I have mentioned over here, like you can create the workflows that build and test every pull request to your repository or deploy most pull requests to production. So what you can configure in your GitHub action, like every time any pull request is raised or any pull request is merged to the master branch, deploy your changes onto the production environment or the stage environment. All those configuration, just like how you mention in the Jenkins, you can mention in the GitHub action workflow also. Now the other thing is also, like if any kind of event is happening onto your repository, like any issue you have created, any pull request you have created, any event if happens on your repository where you have placed your GitHub action workflow, if that is going to happen, then automatically this GitHub action workflow will run and do the respective changes. Now, for example, if you create any issue and if you want to assign any kind of label onto that particular issue, your GitHub action will automatically do that. Okay. Now, the manual intervention, these things are minimized and all those things your GitHub Actions is only taking care. So that kind of workflow you can write using this GitHub Actions. At last, what I have written, that GitHub Actions provide you the Linux, Windows and Mac OS virtual machines to run your workflows. If you are writing some line of code, so all those code need to run somewhere, right? Or it need to be run on any server or infrastructure. So you can so GitHub Actions only provide you that particular infrastructure, and even you can configure your own self-hosted infrastructure also, but we are going to use whatever the GitHub Action is providing to us. Now, to understand our GitHub Action code, the few components we need to understand the first, and then I will go through the code where you are going to understand all those things in the detail. The very first thing what I have written over here is the workflow. Workflows are nothing but it is just a way, or it is an automated process where you are going to run one or more than one jobs. All those things are defined in form of YAML file and that is placed in your repository. Like what event it is going to trigger, what will happen if that particular job will be executed. All those things you are going to write in this workflow. Now, whenever we define the workflow, it is normally written inside the .github/workflows directory of your repository where your GitHub action workflow need to be run. I will show you all those things in much detail also. And then you need to write all the tasks which you are going to, which should be happening when your pull request is raised or when any other event is being triggered. All those configurations you can write in the workflow. For example, you can have one workflow to build and test pull request, another workflow to deploy your application every time a release is created, and still another workflow that add a label every time someone opens a new issue. So multiple kind of workflow you can create in a single repository as well. What kind of event should, what it should do, all those configurations you can do inside your workflow. The main thing to catch over here, that workflow is nothing but a automated process where you are writing more than one jobs. Okay. And now you need to create this workflow YAML inside the .github/workflows directory. I will just show you over here. I have written one. What I have done, .github/workflows, this directory I have created in my this particular repository, and inside this directory I have my YAML file. This is my workflow. I will go into deep of this what this workflow is doing, but for now you can understand that this is the workflow which I have created in this particular path, as I have mentioned over here also. Now, the next component is the event. What is basically the event? Event is just a specific activity in the repository that triggers a workflow run. When your workflow should be initiated, this workflow I have created, but when this workflow should be initiated, whether it should be initiated manually, whether it should be initiated when any pull request is created, or whether it should be created when any issue or new PR you have opened, all those configurations you need to write in the event section when this workflow should run. An event is a specific activity in the repository that triggers a workflow run. For example, activity can originate from the GitHub when someone creates a pull request, opens an issue, or pushes a commit to a repository. In these specific cases, you can trigger an event. Even you can manually also trigger the event that I'm going to show you. Okay? Now the next component of the GitHub action is jobs. What is the job? Job is nothing but the series of steps in your workflow that is going to execute in the same runner. In the same runner means in the same virtual machine, what all the steps are going to be executed as part of your job. All those things are called as a job actually. Each step is either a shell script or your normal command, like we are going to execute Terraform commands. So it can be Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply. All those things are written in step form and that are considered as a single job. Now, the next component is the action. What is basically the action? Action is a custom application for the GitHub Actions platform that performs a complex task. Like action can be anything. For example, action can be like you want to check out any particular branch onto your GitHub repository. That is considered to be one action. You want to configure AWS credentials on your infrastructure or on your runner. That is one kind of action. So these are basically the action means these are basically the custom application that your open community have developed to ease your purpose. You can directly use them in your GitHub action code that I will also show you in the later part of the video. Now, the last is the runner. Runner, I already explained you. This is the server where your workflow is going to be run. It can be the self-hosted server, like you can create your own hosted server, or the GitHub Action already provide you some server where your workflow can run and it will run your workflow and the setup is entirely done. So these are few of the components. Whenever you are going to start write any workflow in the GitHub Actions, these are few of the things that you should know. Then you can easily start with the GitHub Actions. Okay. Now, all those things I will show you in my code where I am using all those things basically. The very first thing I have already told, like this is my project, that is GitHub Action. In this particular project, you need to create one .github, and under that you need to create the workflows directory. Okay. Inside that you need to write your workflow. Workflows are always written in .yaml format. Inside this, I have created my workflow where I am creating a EC2 instance using the Terraform. So I will go through this particular code line by line. For now, I have copied the code over here. Very first line of the code is the name. What is the name? Name is actually optional. This means the name of the workflow. Whenever you will click here, right, on the actions, this is the GitHub Actions tab. Whenever you are going to click over here, you will see this particular name. So this name is basically coming from this part of the YAML that is called as the name. Here we have written our workflow name with which we want it to be displayed on this particular screen. Okay, this is the very first line of our GitHub action. Now you want to write when your workflow should be triggered, whenever a new issue should be created, or whenever a new commit is pushed onto your repository, or whenever a new pull request is created, or you want to trigger it manually. all those kind of event you are going to write in this particular block, that is on block. Okay. Here, what you are going to write specifies the trigger for this workflow. To run a workflow manually, the workflow must be configured to run on the workflow dispatch event. But here what I have done, here I want to run this workflow manually. Like I'm going to click manually and then only this workflow should be initiated. So to run any workflow manually, you need to use this parameter that is called as the workflow underscore dispatch. Under the on block, you are going to write the workflow dispatch. Whenever you are going to initiate the workflow manually, so you need to write the workflow dispatch over here. Inside this workflow dispatch, you need to give the input. Whenever you want to pass any input while initiating this workflow, so those input you can pass in this particular block. What I am going to do over here, I already showed you. You need to go to the actions tab. Here this particular name will show. This name is coming from this particular block. Now we want to initiate this workflow manually. Then in that case, you need to give over the option that is called as the workflow dispatch. If in case whenever you are initiating this workflow manually and it needs some kind of input from you, then you need to define all those inputs in the input section. So you can go over here and select this particular workflow and then you can click on the run workflow option over here. Here you can see that we are taking this particular input over here. So this input you can define in this particular section. This is my EC2 underscore name, this one, right? And then you need to pass description of this particular input. If you want, you can pass over here whether this is a required parameter, then only our workflow will start. That you can define over here. Then what is the default value? If user is not changing this value, what default value should come over here? As you can see, the default value is DEVOPS-TECHSTACK, that is coming over here, right? After that, what is the type of that particular input? So type we are defining as the string. I hope now you are clear with these two block, basically the name and then when this event should be triggered. Okay. Now the next thing is jobs. What task we are going to run finally, that things we are going to define in this particular block. Inside this job you are going to write multiple steps and here you are going to define what all things are going to be performed in your GitHub action file. Okay. The very first thing is this jobs. In this job, it will group together all the jobs that you are going to run in this particular workflow. This is my workflow, right? Inside this, what all steps you want to perform, all those things, it will segregate in this job section. Inside that, you are going to write everything. From here, our main code starts. The very first thing is you are going to write a separate job to provision the EC2 instance. We want to provision a EC2 instance using the Terraform. So we are going this name. Okay. So here we are writing this particular name, that is provision hyphen EC2, right? We are defining a job with this particular name. Again, the runner concept. Where you are going to run this particular workflow? We are going to run it on the Ubuntu latest image. This is the server configuration and here we are going to run our workflow. This configures the job to run on the latest version of the Ubuntu Linux runner. This means that the job will execute on a fresh virtual machine hosted by the GitHub itself. We are not using the self-hosted virtual machines. Instead of that, GitHub Action is only providing you a machine with the latest installed Ubuntu. Okay. And then you are going to run over there the workflow. Now you have one more block that is called as the steps. In this block, what you are going to define? All the steps that we need to perform as part of launching a EC2 instance through the Terraform. The very first thing is you need to check out the code, right? Whenever you are going to run any workflow, you need to check out that particular code, right? So that it will have all the configurations where you are writing how to create a new EC2 instance. All those configurations you have written onto your code, just like here, right? What I am doing over here, go here. Then here I have created one directory that is called as the TF example, right? Inside that I have two files that is called as a main.tf and variables.tf, right? In this particular main.tf, what I am doing, I am just creating a EC2 instance. simple EC2 instance using the Terraform. If you don't know how to write it, you can check my Terraform playlist. There I have explained in much detail how to write a Terraform script to provision a EC2 instance, right? Then what you are going to do? Here I have written all the code to create a new EC2 instance. After that, here I have one variables.tf file. In this variables.tf file, I have written what all variables are required to create a new EC2 instance. We just want to give the EC2 name as the variable, right? So all those codes are placed in this particular repository, right? So you need to check out this repository. So GitHub provides you a action which is your purpose of check out any particular repository. So for that, how you need to write? You have to write actions, GitHub Actions slash checkout at the rate v3. Okay, this is the syntax you need to remember, and you need to write like this to check out any particular repository. The use keyword specifies that this step will run v3 of the action checkout. Okay, this is the action made by the open source community. You just need to directly use this particular action and it will check out the particular repo for you. This is an action that check out your repository onto the runner, allowing you to run scripts or other actions against your code, right? So this is the very first thing you need to write in your code to check out your repository. Now the next thing is one more action we are going to use. This action is basically nothing it is doing, just it is setting up node onto that particular runner. It is setting up the node, which version? Node version is 14. It is just installing on that particular runner. This is not something you need to worry about, okay? Now the next thing which comes into the picture is the configuring the AWS credentials. Terraform is basically going to create the instance onto the AWS. So basically your Terraform should be able to authenticate with the AWS cloud. How to authenticate? For that purpose also, this GitHub action, there is already one GitHub actions built for configuring the AWS credentials. How to write that? Again, AWS hyphen actions. This is built by the AWS team. And then inside that, you have one action called as the configure AWS credentials. And which version we are using? V1 version we are using over here. This you can directly Google it actually. Copy this. And you need to Google over here. Just go to this particular repository and you can see this is already made by the open source community, or I think by the GitHub team, and they have built this particular everything. They have mentioned how to use this particular action, and that thing I am using over here to configure the AWS credentials. Here you need to pass two parameters. Whenever you are authenticating your Terraform with the AWS cloud, you are passing access key ID and the secret access key of your AWS cloud account. How to create that part? You need to go to your AWS account, search for IAM. Here go to users. I think these things are you already might be knowing, but still I'm trying to show you. You just need to click on add users. Just give some name, test. Click next. Test already exists. I will give test14. Just click on next. Here you can attach any existing policy. I'm just attaching the administrator access. Then go to next and then create user. So basically now what you need to do, again click on the test14 user. You need to go to the security credentials. Here you need to generate the access key. Click over here, create access key. Click on command line interface. I understand, accept this. Click on next, create access key. Okay. Now basically you got these two items, that is access key and the secret access key. Two things, whatever the key you got, you need to set it over here. You need to go to your repo, go to the settings and then go to the secrets and variables section. Click on the actions and here you can set those two credentials. How we are setting? Just click over here, new repository secret, just give some name and copy these two particular value. This is the one, this you can click on show and just copy it. These two things you are going to set over here. Again, I will click over here and I have set it these two variable over here. One is for AWS key and other is for AWS secret. These two credentials you have set it over the repository part. At the repository level, you have set it these two credentials. Now you need to use these two credentials in your GitHub workflows, right? How to use that? For that, you need to use the with section. Inside with, you need to pass AWS access key ID, AWS secret access key, and how to take the variable value from your repository. For that, you need to pass single. For that, you need to write it like this dollar, then double curly braces, inside that secrets dot, and then the variable name, this variable name. Okay. You need to write like this to get the values. Then you can pass the AWS reason also if you want. We are going to provision all the instance in this particular reason, that is US-East-2. Till this point, what you have done, the very first thing is you have checked out your particular code, then you have installed node on this particular runner, then you have configured the AWS credentials on your runner wherever you are going to run your GitHub Action workflow. The next thing is to execute all the Terraform commands, you need to install Terraform onto your machine. Again, you have already one GitHub action which will install Terraform onto your system or onto your runner. How to do that? Again, you need to use this uses, and inside that HashiCorp / setup Terraform @v2. You can copy this. Again, you will get one repository where this action is already defined by the HashiCorp team. They have already built this particular GitHub action. You just need to use in your code like this to set up Terraform. Means on your runner where this particular GitHub action workflow will run, there it will install Terraform for you, right? Here also we have defined one with section where we have written Terraform wrapper is false. Means there is one Terraform wrapper class actually. Inside this folder you can see all these wrapper scripts are there. If you don't want to install these wrapper thing, you can make it as false. Whatever I have done over here, so you can do like this. Now the last step is finally you are going to run the Terraform apply command to provision the EC2 instance. How to do that? Again, you are going to pass some name. If you want to pass some ID, you can pass over here. The next thing is you want to pass some environment variable. Now what we are going to do in the env section, we are going to define one environment variable basically. In this environment variable, what we are going to do, that this variable, this we have defined, right? EC2 underscore name. This variable, it should take from the input section. So if you go over here and then click on actions, select this workflow and then click on run workflow. And then here you are passing the input, right? So this input, if you want to take, then you need to write like this: github.event.inputs.ec2 underscore name. This ec2 underscore name basically is coming for this particular variable, whatever you have defined over here, right? EC2 underscore name. This is coming from there, right? So that event, whatever you are going to write, that particular input, whatever you are going to pass, that it is taking over here. Now, in the run section, finally, you are going to execute your all the task. Okay. The very first thing is you need to go inside this particular directory, right? This code has been already cloned onto this particular runner. Inside that, you need to go inside this particular folder so that you can run the Terraform commands over here, right? So the very first thing is we are using cd tf1 hyphen example. Inside that folder we have went. Then to run any Terraform code, the very first thing is you need to use Terraform init so that all the configurations related to the AWS provider will be installed on this particular runner. Then you are going to run Terraform validate to validate whether all the syntax related to Terraform is correct or not. Then Terraform plan will show what all changes are going to be happened on whenever you are going to run the Terraform apply. And at last, we are using the Terraform apply command to execute or to create the EC2 instance on the AWS cloud. And here we are passing hyphen auto approve. Means whenever you are going to run Terraform apply, it will ask whether you want to continue or not. So it should not ask that prompt. For that, you need to pass the hyphen auto approve option over here. Got my point? Now what you need to do, again, we are going to go to the actions tab. Here select this particular workflow name and then click on run workflow. Here the default name is coming over here. I will change this to DEVOPS. Okay. And on which particular branch you want to run this particular workflow, that also you can configure over here. But anyhow, I just have one branch, so I will select that particular branch and then click on the run workflow. And finally, your workflow will start running. Okay. Now it has started running. Just click over here. This is currently running. It is in progress status. Just wait for some time. And you can see all those jobs, whatever the steps you have configured in your code, everything is being running. You can see all those logs over here. And now you can see that there is plan 1 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. And it is trying to create the AWS instance for you. Just wait for some time. You can go to your AWS account also. Go to EC2 service, dashboard. Click over here, remove this running thing. And you can see that this particular instance is created for you, right? So this instance is now creating. It is still in pending state. So it has been running as of now. But after some time, it will complete the job. Okay, just refresh it. And now it is in running state. So your job has been completed, right? Everything has run successfully. So this is how in the real time you are going to write the GitHub Actions workflow for you to run any Terraform code or to run any kind of new workflow whenever a new pull request has been created. Even you can do all kind of testing onto your repo using the GitHub Actions. All those configuration, it is very much easy to run using the GitHub Actions. Okay. I will just destroy my this particular instance. Just terminate it so that I won't be getting any charged. Even I created one IAM user, I will just destroy that particular user also. This is the user, I will just delete it. I hope this video was pretty useful for you. You might have got a clear idea on how to use GitHub Actions. Again, there are many real-time scenarios, but this is something you can get started with and you can easily relate with the other workflows easily. You can understand those things at least once you go through it or you practice on your system. Everything you can easily relate whenever you see any kind of GitHub Action workflows. Thank you guys for watching our videos. Have a great day. Bye.